Let's talk about my favorite tips when sewing with denim. Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Nicole and I like to do fashion DIYs, specifically denim fashion DIYs. And if you've ever sewn with denim or a thicker, bulky material, you will find you can definitely run into a bunch of issues, or at least I have. In this video, I'll be talking about different tools that I use, and I'll make sure to link everything down below if you're interested in checking them out for yourself. Before I start, please be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you like what you hear. I've been working on a couple new sewing patterns and I'm really excited to release it. And ironically, the next sewing pattern I'm releasing is something denim related. So I thought it would be a good precursor to have this video in case you guys are also going to be sewing with denim when you replicate this sewing pattern, just to give you guys more confidence. So starting off, this is not necessarily a requirement, but it can be really helpful, especially when working with denim. And it's to serge your edges. Since denim is prone to fraying and the second you wash it, it's just gonna keep fraying, serging your edges will definitely prevent that and make sure your project lasts a lot longer. I know not everybody has a serger, and if you are looking to invest in another machine outside of your domestic straight stitch, a serger is the next best step to go. But it's also a really good investment if you are looking to start working with stretch knit materials, because the serger is going to allow the stitch to stretch. It also makes all of your insides of your garments look so much nicer and cleaner. Now, alternatively, if you don't have a serger and you're not willing to invest in one, you can also use pinking shears. Pinking shears are a pair of scissors that have a zigzag edge on it that will help reduce the fabric from fraying. I personally don't own a pair of pinking shears, so I can't personally show you how they work, but it is definitely a different option. You can go ahead and cut out all of your fabric pieces using pinking shears. I do just want to start off with a little disclaimer saying that not all sewing machines are equipped to sew thicker fabrics. Sometimes machines just aren't built for that. I am fortunate enough to own the Singer heavy duty sewing machine. I think this is a very typical sewing machine that I see so many people already owning it. It's pretty affordable, it's definitely reliable, and I have had nothing but success with this machine. All of the tips that I'm going to be speaking about, I use on this machine. I can't particularly say that you're going to have the same results if you aren't using a machine made for heavy duty materials. So let's talk about how to prep your sewing machine. First and foremost, I really recommend changing your needle. Make sure you are using a heavy duty or denim needle. I use mine so much, I only have one left. I definitely need to do a little bit of a restock because these things can break at any moment's notice. And then now what? Now I'm just screwed having to go source needles. This is a thicker needle, so it will be able to go through more layers of fabric more easily when combined with your heavy duty machine. I also like to adjust my stitch length. Typically I'll sew at a 2 to 2.5, and when I'm working with a thicker material, I'll switch to a 2.5 to 3 stitch length, and this allows the machine to sew a little bit better. If I have to recommend anything for you to buy aside from denim needles, it is this. I know hands down I could not have done any of my thicker projects without this tool. And I'm not just talking denim, I have made several shackets out of boiled wool, and there is absolutely no way my sewing machine, heavy duty or not, would be able to do this without the walking foot. This chunky thing that I had for years that I absolutely had no idea what this is for is the handiest tool that I own when it comes to my sewing machine. I was lucky enough that this machine actually came with one, but in case you have this machine and it doesn't come with it, I really recommend it. Any type of walking foot is definitely going to help you tackle any of those thicker seams with ease. The only thing I find frustrating is sometimes when I'm sewing in a zipper or if I need to do a buttonhole, it doesn't come as like a walking foot option, so I have to swap this out, and that's typically when I'll struggle. I would have given up so many times if I didn't have this, so I highly recommend it. To install your walking foot, you are going to make sure you remove your presser foot as well as the piece that attaches your presser foot to the machine. It might actually be easier to install the walking foot before you put your denim needle in. Then you are going to make sure the lever of the needle arm is down, so the lever of the walking foot will rest on the knob where you attach your needle. Then you're going to secure the rest of the walking foot in between the screw and tighten. And once the walking foot is secure, I will then re-put my needle in. So this next tool, I honestly had it for years and had zero idea what the hell this thing was for until I saw it on TikTok. My mind was blown, okay? If I had known that this is what this thing was for, I would have started using it a long time ago, and it is this little bad boy. This plastic piece is called a leveler. I don't know if you've ever started sewing and your presser foot is on an angle and it quite literally like can't get over the hump, and then you just have this like thread throw up of bobbin thread on the other end. Incredibly frustrating. This bad boy will definitely prevent that from happening. So once you have your fabric underneath the presser foot, you're going to put your leveler at the back end of your presser foot and make sure you lower your presser foot, and then you can just start sewing. The leveler will kind of just fling off at the back of your machine, but as you can see, the sewing machine had no problem starting off those stitches. This next tip is definitely super handy when you are going over a large chunk of material, whether it's over a bunch of different seams that are joining together on waistbands or even maybe the hem, anywhere where you're gonna have more than 2 to 4 seams. This really changed the game for me, and it is to use a hammer to flatten your seams. I just use this regular hammer that I had from my toolbox, but you can also use a rubber or wooden mallet. But if you just have a hammer and you have a bunch of seams that you want to flatten out, game changer. I will either do this after I've sewn it if it's kind of too bulky and I want it to be more flat, but typically the best way to use it is before you sew. This will help flatten out those seams so we can go through your sewing machine a lot easier. So this next tip is going to be if you are needing to top stitch. So the best way to kind of combat this when top stitching is to trim one side of your seam allowance. Then you can fold over the non-trimmed side and sew along that edge. So the raw shorter side will be completely hidden and it'll be a lot easier to go through your machine. Okay, this might seem like a pretty obvious tip, but even with a walking foot, a denim needle, you're still gonna struggle with some corners or areas of your sewing project. So the best thing to do is to take your time and go really slow. And when I mean really slow, I mean the hand wheel, okay? You're gonna be turning the hand wheel, manually sewing with your machine. Sometimes it's just a little easier to be safe rather than sorry, and going through with the hand wheel will definitely help prevent your machine from breaking a needle or getting stuck in any capacity. And last but not least, I would also really encourage any area of your project that you find you're struggling to get in with your sewing machine. Don't be afraid to go old school and pull out your hand needle and thread. Sometimes it's just easier to do that by hand than to try to struggle and wrestle with your machine for just a small section. I find that there's always that like 1-inch gap near like a collar of a shirt. Specifically when I used to do a lot of shackets, there were really thick areas where there's like the placket and the collar that meet that I just couldn't get in there with my sewing machine. And going in with a hand needle and thread is just like the quickest and most painless way to get the project done without cursing. So hopefully with all these tips in mind, next time you're sewing with a thicker fabric, you'll be able to tackle them with ease. Sewing with thicker fabrics can definitely be daunting in the beginning, and even daunting for somebody who has some experience. It can be really frustrating at times, but knowing that you have a bunch of these different tools at your disposal can definitely make the whole process a lot more seamless and enjoyable. And remember that sewing is so trial and error. Don't be discouraged if it doesn't work the first time and you have to try a couple of these tips out to make things work. That's just what sewing is all about. So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this informative. I hope you learned something. I will have all of the tools that I spoke about today listed down below if you're interested in checking it out. And please stay tuned for my upcoming sewing pattern that I'll be releasing that I will be using denim for. You can obviously use like any fabric, but I'm gonna be using denim, and I'm really excited about that because it is my favorite fabric to work with. Well, maybe not to work with, but it is my favorite fabric. So I'm trying to make it my favorite fabric to work with. That's why I have all these tips, and that's why I want to share it with you guys. So it can also be something that you enjoy to do as well. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one. Bye.